6:03.
Give me 1 second.
Oh,
now
sure.
You can start.
Okay. I'll call the meeting to order here at 6:03 on April 26th. And this is the Education Subcommittee meeting for Wachusett Regional School District. So welcome, everyone. And we have our agenda. Of course, I printed everything but the agenda, so I need to look over here. So our first
is the minutes.
Yes, first is I'm going to print this so I can follow it too. It's hard to read. We all know that dueling screens. So our first order of business here is approving our minutes from March 22nd. So they're linked on the agenda if you want to take a moment to look at them. I'll give you another 30 seconds or so. I'm just going to grab that off the printer. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from March 22nd. Okay. Can someone second it?
Second.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have anything that they would like to discuss about the minutes? Anything to add or delete? Okay.
Nope.
Linda.
Hi, sorry, I had a heck of a time signing on for some reason. I'm sorry.
That's right. Well, welcome. We're glad you're here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and call the roll call vote to approve the minutes. So Member Bennett?
Bennett, yes.
Member Haber?
Haber, yes.
Member Longbalil?
Longbalil, yes.
And Member Shapiro?
Shapiro, yes.
And I vote yes as well. So those pass unanimously. And to the agenda. My printer decided it didn't want to print the agenda, so I have to go back. It says error printing. So the next thing on our agenda was to discuss the inclement weather policy, but we had a member who asked, Member Kirschenbaum asked if this was the one. I think she was asking if we could take the agenda out of order and go to B and C first, because she wants to be here for the inclement weather discussion, and she's not going to be arriving till 6:30. Does anyone object to that? No. Okay. All right. So we'll take B and C out of order and put A underneath that. And we'll look at the independent learning policy and the enrichment policy. And it's been a while, I was thinking, since we've talked policy. It's been a really long time. So just to remind us, what we typically do is take a look at the existing policy that we have. We also, and just give everyone a moment to read it and then to refresh. And then a member of the administration, in this case, Deputy Superintendent Burlow, will give us his recommendation on the policy or why the policy is coming in front of us. For these, we can see they're obviously dated. I'm sure that's part of the recognition of why they're coming. And they then give us some information, and then we can go through and deliberate and talk about what we want to do in what direction. So we'll start with the independent learning policy. So if you want to take a moment, again, it's linked on your agenda. It's nice to have those there. So if you want to take a moment, just a couple paragraphs, 3 paragraphs, and read it. And maybe for the public, we can put it on the screen. Should I do my screen share so people can see it? And you can see it too. So let's see.
Yep.
It's been a while here. So present, do a tab. And you got to find the right tab. Sorry.
Yeah, or you can go open a tab and then go circle into that. While you're doing that, I'll update folks. When I looked on the MASC website for model policies, I could not find something that was right in line with either of these policies. So then I circled back and tried to find something that was in that realm. For them, all their policies that are in the I's, the letter I, that start with the letter I, are for instruction. So I went through all of them, and the one that I could come up with is that IMA, teaching activities and presentations. And that's one that, that's why I shared that one or associated it with these two. Yeah, I just feel it strengthens us as a
Okay.
school committee if we're somehow aligned to the MASC policies, because oftentimes we'll get updates that say this new law or regulation impacts this policy or that, or you should make these changes. So it kind of aligns all that together. So that's where my reasoning came for. And then I put in just to kind of move us along what I was proposing that we would do in the minutes, so that it kind of pushes us to action one way or the other. So
Okay. I know that I'm slow at doing this, but I'm trying to get my tab. Trying to do a window so I can still.
So on this policy here, the independent learning policy that we're talking about, and I'm sure you have open on your end, the last paragraph is one that caught my eye, that where the students are going to receive recognition for their independent learning. I'm not quite sure how we go about doing that. I'm not sure we do that at all as a district. So these are some things I want you to be kind of aware of. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just letting you know that if we have a policy where something's not being followed, then to me, that's an ineffective policy, and we should really look at maybe changing some of the words. In the paragraph that's just above that, the middle paragraph, it's telling us that students at all grade levels will be encouraged to develop independent interests and talents, both within and beyond the classroom. I think if you talk to the average teacher, that's a stretch for what we'd be asking teachers to do. We're asking them to cover the curriculum frameworks. This policy actually was developed before we had all these current frameworks in place. So to me, that's what makes this independent learning policy dated and something that I feel we should move on from. That's just my 2 cents, folks. Christina, we can see it, and maybe if you zoomed in just a little bit, people at home might be able to see it a little better.
So you cut out, my internet cut off. Are you asking me to make it larger?
Just a little bit bigger, just
Okay.
a little bit. There you go.
Okay. Can you see it okay?
Yep, maybe center it. Nice.
Is that good? Oh, let me go back. All right, that's good?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so we had time to look at it. I know Bob was giving us an overview, and then we want to look at, because you just recommended that we maybe put the two policies together, should we look at the other policy as well, and then have our discussion? Would that make sense? The enrichment one, or is that the one you were reviewing those paragraphs for? Sorry, I was.
No, enrichment, I can speak to that as well.
Can you see it on the screen?
If you made it a little larger, I could definitely see it. Perfect.
Okay.
If you center it just a little, there you go.
I think I'm gonna move you all over here. Sorry, I've got the two windows open, I think.
There we go.
Okay.
So on this one, a couple things that jumped out at me. In this first paragraph up here, where it says staff is encouraged and expected to use innovative teaching, implementing the district's curriculum in creative and flexible ways. I'm not sure we're forcing teachers to only use innovative practices and be creative with everything that they're doing. To me, that's not what we're asking them to do. We're asking them to work together, to use effective practices, certainly, to use research-based practices, but to be using innovative ones, I thought that was off. It also, when you get to the bullets down below, there's a couple of things in here that it's asking us to do. One of the things in the first bullet there is to provide opportunities for enriching activities appropriately accessible to all students. I think what we're trying to do is to get kids to meet grade level competencies, and to be saying we're going to have all kids be provided with enrichment opportunities, I'm not quite sure that's the goal of schools. This is a policy that was made in 1999. So it's just some minor phrasing, but to me, it's a little behind the times. So that's why this was jumping out at me. The third bullet down says that as a district that all these enrichment activities will be supported by appropriate classroom resources. I mean, I've worked pretty hard to get the textbook plan in place. It's a 9-year plan. So a lot of people don't have the appropriate classroom resources for enrichment. We're just trying to teach to the content that we're supposed to teach to, never mind enrichment. So there's a few things in here, I think, that if we were going to keep it, we certainly would want to change. But I think the bigger picture is we're looking to go beyond just these two policies. And the reason I kind of like the MASC policy, it goes into the realm of treating everybody with respect. It gets a little bit into what we're trying to do with some of our anti-bullying, with some of our racism and tolerance, professional development, and the direction we're heading. So there were areas of this that I kind of liked, that I thought maybe were a little more powerful than we had in play. Christine, if you make that just a hair bigger, zoom in just a little. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
All right. So just wondering what you all want to do. Do we want to, so Bob's recommending that we delete, that we remove the other, that we recommend to the committee that we would delete those two policies that we started off looking at and use this one as a replacement for those two policies, which we could add information if we wanted to. We could use this as is, or we could go back to both of the other policies and rework them, taking pieces of this. So I'll let you all talk now and figure out what we might want to do. And Krista, I think I saw your hand go up. Okay.
So my question is for the independent study. So, I mean, way back in the day, that used to be a big thing. I haven't been in school for a little bit, so I'm not sure. So people aren't taking advantage of independent learning or choosing classes and then getting, bringing that to the school and then getting credit for taking classes outside of what their current curriculum is in high school. Because I know that was presented as an option. That I'm a parent, so that was presented as an option for my high schooler. So I don't know. So about getting rid of independent learning, but maybe there's a way to put that into what we are looking at with the other one that kind of encompasses it.
So my apology if I misled anyone. This has nothing to do with course offerings. It has nothing to do with number of electives we're offering, that we're not trying to encourage kids to take courses that meet their needs at the high school level. This has to do with providing students with these opportunities to explore whatever they want outside of what the core content is, the curriculum is. And that's what this is really speaking to.
Okay.
And so it has nothing really to do with that. It also, suppose that we come up, and well, a good example might be the science fair at the high school. And the kids do take a class up there where they get to explore and create their own studies that they'd like to do. Yeah. And that they then present those. This has nothing, it won't impact that at all. That's still a design course. It's been approved by the school committee. It has its own curriculum that it follows. So it doesn't impact that at all. What this policy says is that every student at every grade level will be given these opportunities to explore what they want independently.
Hmm.
And this all came about before we were asked to take MCAS, before we were given state
Right.
curriculum frameworks, which now says you will do this, 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 and this within the year. And most teachers, I think, if you were to survey them, and we actually have a couple teachers on this committee, would say, my year is pretty packed right now, just trying to keep up with the existing curriculum frameworks, never mind provide every student that I have with these opportunities to independently explore these other options.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that makes sense. Oh my goodness. And it's so weird because when I look at this, it looks like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. That should be there. I can see where it would be, hard for teachers to be able to give that to each one of the students. But oh my God, I don't know. It's like, ideals versus like reality and what can actually happen, and so it makes me a little bit sad to get rid of that, but I wouldn't know how to put it in there. But it looks like it could just be awesome, but maybe not realistic. You're absolutely right.
Well, I guess.
could I just reply to her real quick, Linda?
Mhm.
Krista, what I would say is if you develop a school committee policy, everyone has to follow that.
Mm-hmm.
By getting rid of one, it's not telling teachers they cannot still do this, especially if they have a course where this really fits into it. It's not saying that. So
Okay.
don't look at it as if you get rid of a policy, no one can do this any longer. Instead, it's saying, my goodness, it's telling teachers not everyone has to do this.
Okay.
So that's what I would say.
Yeah, because it's not right now. It's not something that is being followed as policy, right? So
Correct.
okay. All right.
Linda?
No, I just think about the kids who kind of march to their own drummer, and who may not, whose learning style or approach might just not be met by what happens in the classroom per se. I do see. I'm sort of on the same wavelength as Krista. I think. I hate to. I mean, what you're saying is that teachers can still do this, but they aren't required to do it. That's what you're trying to communicate here? And I guess I'm wondering if instead of getting rid of this policy, we could articulate that point. So saying something like teachers may encourage students to develop individual interests or talents, something like that. It's just, I mean, just because I think about those kids who, as I said, march to their own drummers.
So Linda, but I would say, if I'm going to take that other side, if you say you may do this or you may not, is that even worth our time to have a policy around that? Because I could simply say to you, if I have your son or daughter in my class and you're like, well, Bob, there's this policy, why aren't you doing this? I'd say, well, Linda, it says may, and I've chosen that that's not going to work in my class. So we still encourage teachers to meet students' individual learning needs. What we now are also saying is, look, the state has established this sort of timeline of what has to get covered this year. And depending on my subject area, I might not have time available for these independent studies at this level or in this subject. So that's what I'm advocating for here.
Can I give another example? I know Sherry has her hand up, but Sherry, do you want to, was your hand about this topic? It was? Oh, then go. Do you want to go first?
It's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Because, so I'm kind of thinking it more from the student side, and I think you're right. I think we maybe need to look at how this affects teachers and rewrite that stuff, or just take that stuff out. But when I'm looking at this, when I read this, I'm thinking of my sister-in-law who wanted to pursue a language that was not offered at the high school. And she actually tested out of the language requirement because she learned a different language. And she was able to give credit, so graduation credit, because she learned a language, even though it was not offered at the school. So she wasn't restricted to Spanish, French, and German. She wanted to actually learn a language that wasn't offered. And she was able to test out. Now, is there a different way now that students can do that? If there was, I would be okay with just like, then this isn't necessary. But I'm looking at that type of thing. Or if, you said the sciences, like if a student wants to study, I don't know, anatomy or something, I don't know if that's even offered at the high school, as a science, and they actually study it to competency by taking online courses or whatever, it's that independent study idea, that doesn't follow. The framework requires that there's a science, right? From what I understand, the framework requires a language, but it doesn't say it has to be French, German, Spanish, but that's all we offer, So I don't know, Bob, is there a way to allow students to do that without this policy? Or if we take this policy away, that makes it so those options are not on the table for those students?
So this policy does not speak to taking an independent subject for high school credit. That's not what this policy speaks to at all.
I was like at the last line though, where it says students should receive recognition for independent learning that may include academic credit. So is that a different?
So what we have now in place now in this decade is that the high school has an accepted, and you guys are the ones that accept it and vote on it. There are graduation requirements. There's so many credits. There's so many credits within certain subjects, those types of things. That wasn't in play as far as I know 30 years ago. So, I mean, that's what we're kind of looking at here 25, 30 years ago. What we have in place now is there's a program of studies. If we make changes to the program of studies, we bring it before you. If you would like to advocate for something to be changed, we can study that certainly and bring you our recommendations around that. The other, I guess, the challenge we have is we're a public high school. We have a budget. There's only so many offerings that we can put forward for students. Certainly if a student had an interest, let's say in science, but their interest maybe was in horticulture, let's say plant science, and we're not offering anything like that, that's not something that we would be able to step up and say, okay, you can take that in place of your chemistry course as a lab science, because we don't have that in play. We have courses. It's 3 years of a lab science. We have put our funds towards the labs, developing those. We have you guys approved the program of studies, so it's a little more convoluted right now than it has been in the past. There's a variety of courses that we offer at the high school. So, but we're a comprehensive high school. We're not maybe a private school or some other school that maybe has a very specific focus.
Yeah, Christina, you just pulled up what I was actually thinking.
So this is the 1920 version, though. It's not the 2021, just because this is the one I found quickest. But I'm sure it's this. We haven't approved that one, but I'm sure it's the same.
Okay, so so as long as. All right, so now this is another thing though. So this is here for the high school level, right?
Right.
If we change this policy, does that affect this?
Nope.
Okay. All right.
I don't think they've mentioned the policy, to Bob's point, at all here. It's just a practice that they do at the school. The other thing that I know that I can hear the worry, because we want to be able to offer something like this independent option for kids who want to do like what you just described, Deirdre. And if there ends up becoming a problem, that's the beauty of school committee, is this, you can always write policy to address a problem. That's one of the, so if that becomes a problem that parents say, all of a sudden, because this policy is no longer in existence, I don't think that would be the case, my kid can't do an independent study, then the school committee addresses that issue. But it doesn't mention that at all. The thing I see, and I think Sherry's next, but I'm just thinking about funding as well. Like when we make policy, like that's get a fund, what if we're going to be offering all these children extracurriculars, or we're saying we might do that, it seems like we should be funding that for teachers. But Sherry, did you want to go?
And if I could just add to that, and my apologies, Sherry, for cutting you off here. Deidre, what I was speaking to was, let's take English, for example. The students need to take 4 years of English. There's a grade 9, a grade 10, a grade 11, and then we have some 11 and 12. There's some other options there. But if I didn't want to take grade 9 English, I'm not sure an independent study would work for that. There are certain required subjects that you have to take, and you brought up foreign language. There's 3 years of a world language that has to take place. That might be a little different, because if I wanted to take Mandarin, for instance, and the high school didn't offer it, that could be a proposal I could do an independent study for. But if I wanted to take, I don't know, some other flavor of ELA, I'm really into this and I wanted to read more about that, that might not be acceptable and might not take the place of grade 9 English, which is very specific as to what that needs to cover in Massachusetts. So yes, the independent studies are there, but it doesn't get you to be able to graduate and meet all the requirements in all cases. So I just wanted to be careful what I was saying there. Sorry, Sherry.
No, that makes sense. Thank you.
Oh, it's okay. I propose that we get rid of the first policy and the second policy, like Bob mentioned. I think that the first one, to all grade levels, I mean, it doesn't take away anything from the high school kids. It doesn't take away anything from the teachers who want to continue doing what they're doing. I mean, Mr. Stark over at Central Tree gives these science kids, extra projects, whatever they want to do. They want to, build a pizza oven, and they get this extra credit for it, and that's something that he's built into his thing, and it's optional, and if they're interested, they can do it. And I think the teachers who want to do that are going to continue doing it. I think that having a policy that says that we have to do it is kind of impossible for everyone, especially across the different subjects. I can't envision an algebra teacher giving enrichment to the same extent. I do see maybe taking that new policy and adding something about flexible to a student's learning style, so that we can offer flexibility for kids who learn differently, but I don't see the need for the other two policies.
All right, Linda, thank you.
So I have a question. So let me ask a clarifying question, and then let me ask another question. I'll try to be brief. So what you just put up on the screen, Christina, from, I guess it's the handbook or something.
Mm-hmm.
That allows for a student to take a class somewhere else for credit, and get credit at Wachusett. Is
Yes.
that correct?
No, it was within Wachusett.
No.
So it is kids at Wachusett who can work out something that's not available, that they've met grad requirements or something, but it's an extra enrichment type thing they might want to do that they've worked out through their guidance counselor and a subject area teacher. I would imagine they do this application and see if it gets approved.
Right.
Christina, go just a few bullets above that, and I think that's what Linda's asking about.
Oh, the dual enrollment?
No. I'm not actually asking about the dual enrollment.
I mean, the independent
It's
study.
independent study option. Okay, so whoa, slow down. Whoa, stop, please.
Is it large enough? Should I make it a little larger?
Yeah.
Okay.
The independent study option is offered to students who wish to pursue a course not available at WRHS, or that goes beyond the scope of our established curriculum and is pursued outside the student's full-time enrollment. So this allows kids to take a class outside of Wachusett. Am I right about that part? I can't.
Well, Linda, it's what you mean by take a class. So if you're going to take a class offered by another institution, that's just above this where it says, go up to, Christina, please. Coursework outside of Wachusett. That's where, if you're going to take a course. If you, Linda, wanted to design your own study, and that puts the parameters around it, it has to be 90 hours, this and that. If you want to get a grade for that, you have to submit work and all that other stuff. So.
Right. Okay, so there's coursework outside of Wachusett, and then there's also this independent study provision here.
Yep.
And they're two different things. Have I got that right?
Yep.
Okay. And let's see. So the kids they can, as it says here, so rescinding this policy is not going to prevent a kid from initiating an independent study application with their school counselor and get it approved. Is that right?
You're absolutely correct.
Okay. All right. That's what I wanted to know. All right. I just wanted to be sure about that because I do think this option ought to be available for those kids who, as I said, march to their own drummer, or who, if Wachusett didn't offer dystopian novels, that would be the thing my kid would want to take if he was going to take English at all. I have one of those boys who doesn't like to read. Anyway, if we didn't offer that, then this would be perfect for him. So as long as they can do that, I'm okay with rescinding the independent study provision that you just described, the policy that you just described, as long as this is still available to students in that manner. The enrichment policy, my recollection is we don't offer a, quotes, gifted program, unquote. We offer AP classes and lots of things that are good for kids who might arguably be gifted or, very academically inclined. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a variety. We have 20 different AP advanced placement courses that we offer at the high school.
Right. So that should be enough for the gifted kids, or any kid. So you don't feel the other policy is necessary or helpful, since we've got content that addresses those needs. Is that right? And because of the burden on teachers. Is that right?
Correct. And it goes back to what I said earlier. If we have a policy, you are mandating that everybody needs to follow this. It doesn't matter about the grade level or the group of students they're working with. And to me, that's the difference between maybe how we write policies now and maybe how they used to be. Now we have to look at the entire picture and spend some time to discuss, does this apply to everybody? That type of thing. So
I see. Okay. All right. I will approve this recommendation of yours. So
do we have anyone else who wants to comment on either of the two existing policies, like your feelings on what we should do with them or questions about them? So go ahead.
I just have one little question. What policy is it that permits the independent study that's in the handbook? Is there a policy specifically about that, or part of the policy? No?
No, you don't create policies about what the high school is going to offer for individual courses. You could set a policy around expectations that they will have so many credits, that type of thing, but you don't get down to that level of detail.
Okay. All righty.
You have the right to approve or disapprove of any proposed changes that they want to make to the existing high school program of studies. That's the book that Christina was flipping through earlier.
Right.
And that's a pretty long book too.
I know. It is. Okay, thank you.
So I think maybe if we are going down the path, it sounds like we might be in favor of having the newer language from the MASC and either looking at that and determining if we want to keep it as is or make it more personalized to Wachusett. But before we delete these other policies, I would think we would want to present a new, like the new policy. I think we've done this before. We've had the newer policy, and then once that passes and say like, we'd like this to take the place of, then we vote on removing the others or recommend to the committee that they do that. I feel like we've done that on this committee for something else, but I don't remember. Have we done that? I don't remember.
We've done it multiple times. Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes it's complicated and I give you charts with arrows of what we're doing and all that. Yeah.
So we'd probably want to work on the new thing first. It sounds like looking at the MASC language, see what we like, if we want to change it, and then go back to, are we going to totally remove recommend deletion of these other policies?
That makes sense.
So if we start here, and I wonder if Bob, you know that we like to wordsmith for some reason. That's what we like to do. So I'm wondering if I take this and can put it on a document.
You want to put it on the agenda? Just flip to the end of the agenda.
Sure.
Throw it on there. We can all go down in the agenda.
Yeah.
And
That's
idea.
a great idea. That's awesome. Like what we
make
did
sure
with our,
everybody's an editor.
am I on the right thing? That's the draft agenda in minutes, right?
Yep.
Yep, paste right there. I'll
Okay.
straighten it out later.
Okay. So this way everyone can see and mark like we did with the, I forget what you call it, the resolution that we offered that worked. Okay.
Yep.
Mhm.
I kind of like it on one page though, so I'm going to move it down. I don't like the page break in between. Okay.
Sure.
Now,
There you
how
go.
is that for everyone's viewing? I think if I do one more, it's even better. Okay. So maybe we take another moment and kind of look at this. Usually what we would do if we were in person is we would read through each section out loud and then say, does anyone have any comments? So I'd like to do, it's been so long since we've been in person and also done this, but let's try that. Does someone want to read for us the first paragraph? Any reader volunteers?
I'll volunteer.
All right, Linda.
All right. So it is the desire of the school committee that the best available strategies for bringing about learning be utilized in the district schools. The instructional staff shall be expected to keep abreast of new and promising instructional ideas and practices developed in schools throughout the nation, and to apply those which have potential for improving the learning program in the district schools.
Okay.
So that's the first paragraph.
Right. So usually, do we want to read the next two paragraphs and then go back to that first paragraph, or just so we can hear it? I kind of do. Linda, would you read the next two paragraphs and then we'll go back to paragraph one?
Sure. Okay. An educational climate shall be established which shall be conducive to rational thought, inquiry, and respect for the dignity of the individual. This educational climate will assist students in learning how to think, I should say, rather than what to think, and shall provide students the opportunity to identify, express, and defend their opinions without penalty or fear of reprisal or ridicule. And lastly, nothing in this policy shall limit a parent or guardian's right to file a complaint to challenge the use of teaching activity or presentation.
All right. Thank you. You have a wonderful reading voice, Linda. That was perfect.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Very nice. So if we go to that first paragraph now and then think, what is it? Do we want to keep this whole thing? Do we want to change some words? What do we want to do? So we'll open it up for discussion on that first paragraph. Keep in mind, you can take any of those pieces of those other policies that you liked, that you want to keep here, or we can keep this as it is. And we're small enough where you can just speak if you want to.
So if I could jump in here, I like where this conversation is going. I came in late, I'm apologizing, but I like where everybody went with the conversation as I heard it on the tail end. The first paragraph, second line, where it says the instructional staff shall be expected to keep abreast of new and promising instructional ideas and practices. I do appreciate the desire and the need for instructional staff to really be, on it. But I also believe that it is the responsibility of the district as a whole. And so I would like to include district leadership in this wording. Because I think that change can happen from the bottom up, but it can also happen from the top down. And sometimes it works well meeting in the middle. And I think it misses the opportunity to make it a collaborative partnership.
So we can just type right. Is anyone in opposition to that? Okay. So do we want to just type it in our regular font? We don't need to do suggesting, right? Because it's us that would be doing it. But we do like district leadership, and instructional staff, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. something that struck me on that same sentence, this seemed, how could I do this? I felt a little overwhelmed throughout the nation.
Mhm.
I just, how would I do that?
Yeah.
We just say district leadership and instructional staff to be expressing new and promising instructional ideas and practices, and to apply those in which have potential. I mean,
Yeah, I think that's fair. I thought about that too. It just seemed like a lot to ask of teachers. And there are some teaching methods that are just tried and true.
Yeah, I think to your point, Linda, I think the term best practices is sort of the term, the lingo that's used. So maybe before practices, include the word best practices. Because that is a valid, data-driven, tried and, like you said, the tried and true methods, as well as the up and coming, right? So you're not constantly asking the staff to innovate just for the sake of innovation, but to parse out those best practices and maintain them.
So are you suggesting you get rid of the word promising, or where would you put that?
So I wasn't talking about removing the word promising, although I might use the word innovative instead. But best practices, right where Krista is sort of the word, the lingo that people are using.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes when there's no best practice, people will talk about, there's no data to support that something's a best practice. I've heard the term promising practice used. So
yeah, I'd be a little careful with best in there. We want people to use effective practices. Absolutely. It might not be the best practice, but as Linda said, maybe in a particular situation or with a group of kids, it's an effective practice with that group, but it's not considered a best practice. So I'd be a little careful. The more generic we can be at this level, we're setting the bar kind of higher here, saying, hey guys, we want you to be able to, pay attention to this stuff. But we don't want to be so specific that people are going to be like, I'm not doing that.
Right. Yes.
And get rid of the word developed as well, Christina.
Yeah.
I didn't know if we were all fine with me erasing that whole thing. Are we okay with? Okay.
Yes.
Right. Oops, now I need to go back to this.
I'm liking the colored strike through. That's nice.
Start suggesting one. Let's say, there we go. Instructional ideas and practices. Potential for improving. Okay, anything else in that paragraph? Let's see. What about the beginning? It is the desire. Like, I feel like we don't write our policies like that.
We don't, but there are many of them in MASC that start that way.
Yeah, I don't think we say of the school committee. I feel like if it's redundant to the fact that it's our policy. So I think we have to start with a better starting,
Usually it starts with a belief statement, right? A value statement.
Right. That's what I was looking to see, like what other ones look like, to see how you can start it.
Don't they sort of sometimes start like we, the Wachusett Regional School Committee, believe that? And that's usually.
Yeah, if we can look at our two that we had earlier tonight.
Yeah.
One starts with the Wachusett Regional School Committee supports, and then the other one is the Wachusett Regional School Committee is committed. So something like that.
Yeah, copy paste.
Yeah, I like committed. I like that.
All right.
Yeah.
We can even take this line, maybe. I don't know. I'm gonna just try it. See, we can.
Yeah, I support that. I think that's an enduring goal, right? That's the enduring thing. The desires can change.
Let's see. And then let's see. Then somehow can we make these go together, these two things, if we need to, or No, what you think is committed to providing. Can we just take out this line? Because then it would just go to the district leadership and instructional staff should be expected, because it's supporting this idea of maximizing performance and achievement of individuals. Isn't that why we would be doing those things anyway? I don't know.
Would you have
I think it's good to state it personally.
The desire part?
The Wachusett Regional, maybe I misunderstood what you were getting at. I like the Wachusett, I like the first sentence. I thought, okay. Oh, I see what you're saying. So let's see. I see. I misunderstood you. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay.
Try it, Christina. Delete it and hook those two paragraphs together, and let's see if it makes sense. You can always undo it later.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, do you like this?
Linda, will you read it out loud for us?
There we
Sure.
go. Yes.
I'll be the designated reader. The Wachusett Regional School Committee is committed to providing a high-quality education for all students with the goal of maximizing the performance and achievement of every individual. The district leadership and instructional staff shall be expected to keep abreast of new and promising instructional ideas and effective practices, and to apply those which have potential for improving the learning program in the district schools. I like that.
That's pretty powerful.
Yeah, I think that holds together very well. It sends a
Really
very
good.
positive message. Yes.
All right. And it sounds like us more.
Yes.
Right. So maybe we go on to the next paragraph and then the next one, and then we can come back and see. All right.
I just want to say, I think we should be committed to irrational thought. I'm just joking.
So if I could ask that we put the second sentence or a version of the second sentence as the beginning of the paragraph to set the goal, right? I'm sorry, maybe I misworded that. The second sentence of the second paragraph, make that the first sentence of the second paragraph.
You can go ahead and
Reverse the two sentences.
Reverse the two sentences. I didn't
there we
realize
go.
there were only two sentences in that paragraph. Sorry. Because it sets the goal. Like, what are we going to? For me, I just like to start with the end in mind. Very UBD, I know, but let's start with the end in mind. What are we trying to achieve? We're trying to achieve that. We're trying to get students to learn how to think rather than what to think. Right? That's the goal. And how are we going to do it? By fostering an educational climate conducive to rational thought. I'm not sure that I don't quite get that second sentence, but I like starting with the goal in mind in that paragraph. That's my 2 cents on that one. So you might change the first sentence to be with the goal of helping students learn how to think rather than what to think, yada, yada, yada.
I guess where I'm stuck right now is I'm looking at the first paragraph, and I feel like it jumped topics on us, and we need a transition here, because it went from, we're going to pick out all these best practices or these practices that are effective, and now we went to educational climate all of a sudden. I feel like there's a missing strand somewhere of how practices connect to this environment or climate that is created because of the practices I'm thinking. And the title of the policy from MASC is Teaching Activities / Presentations. I don't know how to.
Christina, that line that we got rid of that had the word strategies in it, I feel like is the one that would connect them.
So which line was it? Was it?
I have to go and look.
The second, this first one. It is the desire of the school committee, this one. Okay, let's try that. If we put it here, now we can have a desire. Let's see. And then maybe saying this will assist in creating an educational climate, something like that.
That's a good way to connect it.
Yes.
In creating, and I don't know if climate's the right word, but climate.
And it's not the students who are going to be creating this educational climate.
Teachers. There.
Why don't we say the schools? Because it could be the students, it could be the teachers, it absolutely has to be the administration.
So could it be the school community? The school community.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't want to put it on parents and all that. It's definitely this is how we're setting up our schools to focus. You know, what's the climate? What are we supporting?
Could it just be this will assist
Sure.
in creating
Yep.
an educational climate?
Yep.
And then get rid of the word students after and shall provide students the opportunity. Students again.
So the second sentence that we're working on right now may have a inadvertent out for some students, some members of our community who use this statement to make hateful speech. Right, because they could say I'm you know, I'm expressing my ideas and defending my opinions without, and I shouldn't be penalized or, so we need to be careful with this wording because we're also working very hard at developing a harassment policy and a bullying policy that is more inclusive.
What if we remove that part and just ended it at what to think? So learning how to think rather than what to think.
I definitely can see where Laura's going with this, but I actually like that part because I'm thinking of more positive in the sense of like a student can disagree with a teacher as long as it's, I think maybe the word appropriate in an appropriate environment or something. Like what they're saying is that, you know, the student can express that they disagree with something in general, you know. So I was thinking of that more, but I can see where Laura's going. I don't know if we want to take it out. I'd like to see a way if we can make it work in that
Maybe
vein.
instead of like without penalty or fear, they could be expressing and defending their opinions responsibly.
Oh,
Something like that.
yeah, I think that might work.
Nice one, Krista. I like that.
Yeah.
So how do we word, do we take out this section here and do something about the responsibly?
I mean, could we say and defend their opinions responsibly?
With empathy and responsibility. I don't know. I could get real deep in that.
I think what we were talking about was defending their opinions, and then right after the word opinions was when we threw in responsibly.
Right.
So it wasn't. It was this last part about. Christina's got us here going.
I don't know. respectful manner.
Ooh, I like that.
But something like, if you do have divergent opinions, I don't know how to phrase it. But you do that expression in a respectful manner. And I guess what's divergent is in the eye of the beholder.
Is it encouraged or allowed?
Would be allowed. I think both, but probably allowed.
Yeah.
So could we also say, I like the idea of defending their opinions. So maybe we'll express divergent, we'll express and defend their opinions in a respectful manner. Because I think that that's where, the learning can happen is, well, what's your opinion? Okay, great. Now defend that. Let's parse that out, right? So it's more than just stating your claim. It's doing the work.
Could we say students will be permitted? I don't know why I like that better than allowed, but I like permitted better.
I have to say, the more that we get into this paragraph, the more I kind of want to wipe part of it out, guys.
I'm not liking where we're going with this, guys.
No?
I feel like it's taking away from the first part. It's something completely separate, but I just don't know that it goes in this one.
Maybe we should just take it out. Yeah.
Right.
It's beautiful.
Put it down here for a moment.
It's beautiful, but
if we're trying to say pretty generic, this is not it.
Well, I like that last sentence, actually, Sherry. By taking that other sentence right out, I think that last sentence
there it is.
gets to it, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
Yeah, the last phrase of this last sentence actually covers what we were trying to get at. So
yes.
Yeah, I think it's there. I think you're right. It was getting too specific.
So we'll delete this down here at the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay. All
Because
right.
the respect and the dignity of the individual, I think is
that
where we were
works.
trying to
Yep.
go. Yeah. Let's keep it simple.
Yep.
What is this about? We don't usually have these in our policies.
It was in the model policy.
Right. I mean, you are going to have parents who are going to complain, and this basically says they can complain.
Which they can
complain without us.
Anyway, we don't need to have it in a policy. They can and they will.
I think, Christina, with the school committee saying that, hey, teachers, we want you to look at current practices that are effective, that type of thing, to implement those. We want you to have this discourse happening in your classes to the extent that it's reasonable. You're pushing us to kind of move and do things that are current and also that are considered to be effective. Parents might have an issue with that. And so this is giving it the other, you're still telling, hey, look, you can still complain, even though we're telling the staff we want them to be current and up to speed and try these new ways of doing business. So
I think it's important to keep it in. I think by taking it out, we would be, for anyone who knows that we took it out, we'd be sending a message that we're somehow trying to stifle dissent.
I think, how about we don't usually have like file a complaint, but to challenge, like, what if we just have that part to challenge the use? We don't have a mechanism to file that I know of, or do we, Bob, to file a complaint?
Sure, they talk to the building principal. That's what we tell everybody. Go to the building principal.
Okay.
I think we should just keep it the way it is myself. I like it. I mean, all of it together.
All right. So should we read back through to see how does it sound? Do we title it?
You can change the title if you want. I just brought forward, it says teaching activities / presentations right now, but it doesn't have to say that. We had enrichment before and we had independent learning. I don't think it's either of those.
No, it's not. Teaching activities and presentations. Yeah, I'm not sure that really fits exactly either, but it's relatively generic, so it doesn't hurt it at all.
Teaching strategies. And
call them
educational climate.
instructional-
Yeah. Oh,
instructional-
that's good.
yeah.
That's good, Sherry. Yeah.
Strategies.
Oh, they're caps, right?
Oh, I can change all that later. You don't have to get it perfect.
Educate and climate. Is that what you said? Okay.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Okay. So do we want to do another read? Let's see if I can copy this.
I'll give it a number later, guys. I'll find a home where it makes sense in the 3000 series.
Great.
Can we reference the IMA as
Yep.
a source?
Yep.
I think that's an important thing.
Yep. And I'll make a link to that as well.
Perfect.
Great.
Okay. Do we want to ask Linda, our designated reader, to read it through for us one more time as a whole thing?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. So, teaching strategies and educational climate. The Wachusett Regional School Committee is committed to providing a high-quality education for all students with the goal of maximizing the performance and achievement of every individual. The district leadership and instructional staff shall be expected to keep abreast of new and promising instructional ideas and effective practices, and to apply those which have potential for improving the learning program in the district schools. It is the desire of the school committee that the best available strategies for bringing about learning be utilized in the district schools. This will assist in creating an educational climate in which students are learning how to think rather than what to think. An educational climate shall be established which shall be conducive to rational thought, inquiry, and respect for the dignity of every individual. Nothing in this policy shall limit a parent or guardian's right to file a complaint to challenge the use of teaching activity or presentation. Maybe the use of a teaching activity?
Okay.
I think we need an A there.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Any comments on any of this? Anything you want to add, delete?
The last sentence of the second paragraph, there was a misread of that, and then it made me think maybe we need to look at it again.
Will you tell us what it was?
Yeah.
I missed it.
Okay, so the last part of it was, and respect for the dignity of all individuals was the misread.
Ooh.
Okay.
I'm not saying that it needs to be changed to that, but maybe we just look at it for a sec.
I mean, I think you can do it either way, really. I mean, respect for the dignity of the individual, to me, is a generic individual that's sort of intended, at least, to represent all individuals, but
Does anyone else think that it should be all individuals instead of dignity of the individual?
I think it makes sense both ways, and I don't think it matters too much to me.
I sort of like it the way it is.
Cool.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Thank you. Okay. So it sounds like we would bring this to the school committee. We would ask them we'll do a first reading and then second reading. And when we introduce, we would say the goal after the passing of this would be to then, if this passes, reading would be then to go to the other policies and remove them. And we actually took a piece of one of the policies. So we'd get this in the books if the committee passes it. And if they do, then we would recommend the deletion of those other two. So it could be a long drawn out process. And that's what you were saying, Bob, right? It takes a while.
Sometimes.
At least
the questions.
Yeah.
Sometimes they no one has a question. Other times you're like, oh my goodness, and they send it back, and you're like, really?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's good. Bob, should we put this on our next full school committee meeting agenda?
Yep,
Okay.
that's what I'd suggest. Yep.
Okay, we'll do that for first reading.
Oh.
Okay, and then on back to our agenda, which is on the same
Do
page,
we-
isn't it?
Do we need to take a formal vote to do
Oh,
this?
I guess we should. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you so much.
Sure.
So we need to do, we never even really took the formal vote to actually get into discussing all of these. Someone made a motion, I think it was maybe Sherry way back, about deleting the two policies, but then we went right into this and we didn't make a decision. So what do you guys think is the best course of action right now? How do we get ourselves back on track?
Well, I can retroactively second Sherry's motion or amend it. If it
So
needs
we
amended.
might need to start again because I didn't capture anything that Sherry said.
Yeah.
I make a motion to. I don't have any in my notes, anything like that. So let's just make it now. Yeah.
Okay.
And
So
I'll show
someone
them
wants
the
to make a
minutes.
motion. Okay. Someone wants to make a motion to, would they be making a motion to bring this draft new policy to the school committee? Is that?
Right.
And to
And
delete.
to delete.
It all in
Oh,
one.
and to delete the
Yes.
policies. Do we do that at the same
Okay.
meeting? Would we do
Oh,
that at
yeah.
the same meeting? Okay.
Sure.
So, all right. So, a motion. So someone's going to make
You
that
want me
motion.
to go ahead?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to remove policy 3360 independent learning and remove policy 3611.4 enrichment, replacing them with a new policy which will be numbered in the future called Teaching Strategies and Educational Climate.
I second.
Okay. So now we'll vote. Any discussion before? I'm sorry. I'm so rusty right now. Any discussion on this? All right. So then we'll go to a vote to do what was just proposed separately. We have Member Bennett,
Bennett, yes.
Member Haber,
Haber, yes.
Member Kirschenbaum,
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Longbeliel,
Longbeliel, yes.
Member Shapiro,
Shapiro, yes.
and then the chair votes yes as well. So that passes unanimously. All right. Thank you. Okay, so now back up to our agenda here. So we did take, at Member Kirschenbaum's request, we took B and C first, and now we're ready to discuss A, inclement weather. And so this, we have proposed eliminating the policy 3231 and replace it with the emergency closings policy. Do you want to, we'll take a look at the policy and then you can speak to your recommendation here.
Sure. You want to read first?
Sure. Do we want to read this policy? Oh, just quietly. You guys can read this quietly. This one.
Mm-hmm.
Quietly.
Anyone need more time? All right. And then should we look at the next one here? This is a little longer.
Mm-hmm.
A lot longer.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll just read for a minute. Does anyone need more time? All right. So Bob, if you want to fill us in.
Sure. Could you go back to our current policy, please, Christina?
Yes.
So when I was looking at this, the reason I suggested we made a change was I reflected back on some of the times we've had to close the schools. And in a few instances, we've had to close individual schools, especially in the last few years. We've closed Mount View, we've closed Glenwood, just for different reasons. Nowhere in here does it talk about school. It only talks about, the district. We've also had to close for other reasons than what's listed here, other emergencies. So I felt that this was kind of restrictive. It didn't quite cover everything. And the biggest thing I think that's missing is it doesn't provide any guidance as to what Daryl is using when he closes, what the superintendent is using when they close the schools. That's what really intrigued me about the other one. It's saying, look, this is what we're going to keep in mind when we're deciding whether a school is going to be open or not. It's not just the total accumulation of snow, for instance. It has to do with these other safety factors. Can the staff get in to man the school? And they don't all live right in that town. So it has some other things. And that's why I thought it was a stronger policy, the MASC one. I didn't see anything in here I thought we would need to pull across. So that's why I put that recommendation out there for you guys.
The only thing is, I worry a little bit that the MASC policy might be unduly burdensome on the superintendent. Will weigh these factors and take action to close the schools only after consultation with public works and public safety authorities and with school officials from neighboring towns. I mean, how many people does he have to call? I assume he talks to some of these folks.
At 5 a.m. too.
Right.
Or 4 a.m, right?
Right.
Isn't it?
Right, 4 a.m.
4 a.m. is going to call neighboring towns.
Right.
I think there's some things in here that
they kind of do get in touch. I mean, you could take any of that out, but they
I'm pretty sure he does that.
Yeah, that's what I'm
No one
wondering.
wants to be the lone wolf these days. So you're like, hey, what are you thinking? What are you doing? And then they just do it quickly. Most of it's like chatty sort of things. And and he absolutely talks to all 5 towns because it could be a very different climate in the center of Holden than in the center of Princeton, for instance. So it's just that elevation difference.
Okay. I just didn't want to make it overly burdensome for him. I mean,
you could take any words out you'd like to, Linda. I'm not saying you have to keep them.
If you don't think that language is overly burdensome, then
does it require? I don't know. Can you flip back, Christina?
Yes.
Before
we do, Laura put in the chat. Should someone make a motion to either adopt to revise or adopt the policy? We're learning from our previous session. So does someone want to make a motion to and looking back at this, it says propose eliminating policy. Oh wait, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Propose eliminating policy 3231 and replace it with MASC model policy. Does someone want to? I'll entertain a motion to do that if we would like to. Okay, and then someone second. Okay. Right, now we can keep going. So, Deirdre, you want to look at this, right? Thank you, Laura, for that. You were looking at, what were you asking, Deirdre?
I was asking, was it a requirement? Weigh these factors and takes action to close the schools only after consultation with. So it does sound like it's a requirement that he talks to A, B, C, D. And, I think to kind of Linda's point is to say, may consult with or something like that.
I say may consult. I think we should give him some latitude to talk to whomever he feels is appropriate.
But I mean, we can start from the top too and kind of see, because there's things in here about public transportation that does not apply to us. So maybe we should just start from the top and work our way down like we did with the other one.
That makes sense.
Well, and certainly though, if there's a power outage at a school, he doesn't have to talk to the public works and the other towns.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer. Yeah. Right. So,
okay.
And then, I'm sorry. I just want to throw it out there. Does this give? Is this also someplace where we want to talk about his authority to close a school due to COVID or other pandemic related things? I don't know if that's a different policy.
That falls
it does
under
talk about
other emergencies.
Other emergencies.
Or other emergencies. That's why I like this one.
Yeah.
So it keeps it at, so we're thinking that would fall into that category. Okay, I'm
There's
just
two
kind of.
broad and there's two
Mhm.
broad buckets here that'll catch anything. So it's
Okay.
weather
Okay.
conditions or other emergencies versus
Yeah.
the other policy, which spelled out all these individual things.
That, yeah, just snow, essentially. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so do we want to go like we did with the last one? I think Deirdre just suggested to go paragraph by paragraph to see. Okay, so
Thanks, Krista.
Does someone else want to be the designated reader, or do you want me to continue?
No, Linda, you're so good. No.
See, you did too good of a job, Linda.
Ah, darn. Okay. All right. So emergency closings. The superintendent may close the schools or dismiss them early in the event of hazardous weather or other emergencies that threaten the health or safety of students and personnel. This one's less poetic than the last one, but anyway. While it may be prudent under certain circumstances to excuse all students from attending school, to delay the opening hour, or to dismiss students early, the superintendent has the responsibility to see that as much of the administrative, supervisory, and operational activity is continued as may be possible. Therefore, if conditions affect only a single school, only that school will be closed. Are we doing this paragraph by paragraph, or am I reading everything?
I feel like for this one, we could probably just do paragraph by, or what do you want to do? It's your committee. What do you guys want to do? Do you want to have her read the whole thing or just do each paragraph?
Paragraph.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that better too.
I
Yeah, let's
worry
take
about
piece by piece.
I worry about this last line about only affecting a single school, because I've had parents tell me, like, if the Princeton kids can't get to school because their buses, then close the Princeton schools and keep Holden open. Well, I mean, it's funny, but that's what they say, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it worries me to have this if conditions affect a certain school, because we're still a district.
What if we use the other
need to act as a district.
emergencies? Because I think the weather conditions that
Right.
I hear the same thing. We all hear that, right? And we might
Yeah.
even think that depending on our elevation in our square
Mhm.
mileage. But of course, we have the regional high school that affects all the kids. But this is probably, it would be like emergency, not really the weather, right? It's probably more emergency conditions, although it could be due to the weather. There could be a
Right.
power outage or something.
Right, or when the pipes burst at Mount View or something.
This is a tough one.
So I think this is where the criteria in the next paragraph is important, because the superintendent will be using these enumerated conditions or criteria to make the best decision possible to keep the district running as much as possible. And I think transportation is one of them. So I think that's our argument that, okay, well, the weather in Rutland is really bad and not in Holden, so we should just close down Rutland schools. Well, that affects the transportation needs of the entire district. And it's incumbent upon a communication strategy to make that known, right? And I think that's feedback for another conversation, but I think that when we have a communication mechanism that explains the decision-making process, I think then people understand that process more effectively.
What if we put the part about the single school being closed under point 3, or actual occurrence or imminent possibility of emergency condition at a school, or make the operation of a school difficult or dangerous? And getting it out of that top paragraph.
I like
so
that.
my intranet cut out and I didn't hear any of that besides something about point 3, and then I copied the item. So
Christina, you made a good point. It would be to grab that last sentence of the first paragraph and throw it under at the end of number 3 there as the last sentence. That makes some sense.
Something, okay.
Hold on.
I copied it down there, but I didn't put it in the right spot, I'm sure.
How about that? Is that what we're talking about, guys?
Yes, I'm going to erase where I copied it.
Okay. Yeah.
Do we think we need this, all of this stuff, this like philosophical?
I think it's good. I mean, I don't know.
I think it just makes it very clear that the superintendent is not just going to like willy-nilly close
Yeah.
things without taking very serious
Mhm.
measures to try to keep it open.
Right. I think that's right.
I think what it does is it sets an expectation for, it doesn't matter who. Suppose you get the next superintendent and that person is just afraid of everything and is closing schools left and right. You can say, hey, it's right here in the policy. You got to try to work towards having the kids in as much as possible here.
Mhm.
So I think it gives you a little bit of leverage there.
Right. Right. I think that is good.
I think what I'm not liking is that I kind of would rather see it like this, which probably isn't grammatically correct, but it really sets apart what the top is of the policy. This is what the superintendent's doing. Here, this is what we're saying philosophically is important, not to just close them because, and then these are decisions that will be made. I just feel like it looks, I don't know.
I think it's good. I like it. I like it better that way too.
All right. And now, so that's that paragraph. Now we're looking at the decision-making process that you all were talking about. So this next section, do we want Linda to read in making the decision?
Of course we do.
Maybe I should get, a job as a, those audiobooks.
Yes, yes.
Totally can.
Voiceover artist.
Absolutely. They will
My
pay you.
second career.
Yes.
Third career. Okay. All right. So in making the decision to close schools, the superintendent will consider many factors, including the following principal ones relating to the fundamental concern for the safety and health of the children. 1, weather conditions, both existing and predicted. 2, driving, traffic, and parking conditions affecting public and private transportation facilities. 3, actual occurrence or imminent possibility of any emergency condition that would make the operation of schools difficult or dangerous. Therefore, if conditions affect only a single school, only that school will be closed. 4, inability of teaching personnel to report for duty, which might result in inadequate supervision of students.
Can I? This has been one of my pet peeves for a while, and I still use the word ones.
Say that
Following,
again.
like instead of ones, just including the following principles. The principal ones.
Oh, up here. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't feel like
I don't know.
Yeah,
That's
I don't
just
think we
me.
need that either.
Do you want to say including the following?
The following concerns,
Following
or
principles,
following-
concerns, items, criteria.
The criteria is what they are.
Criteria. The following criteria.
Yeah, I like that better too.
Is criteria the plural? I never remember. That's the criteria is plural, right? Criterion is one. Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to concern for safety and health of the children. Okay.
For number 2, I don't know that we need affecting public and private transportation facilities. I think just driving, traffic, and parking conditions.
There you go.
Maybe get rid of the word actual occurrence. Like if it's an occurrence, then it's actually happening.
Yes.
It's a philosophical occurrence.
I don't know.
I think there might be something happening. Therefore, it will.
For some reason, I want the word "the" in front of occurrence. What do people think?
One more time.
If anything, maybe an occurrence.
Well, if we're going to put the article there, we have to be consistent across all 4, right?
Okay, that's true. Okay. All right, never mind.
So that's fine if you want to do it across all four, but
Well, no, I think it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, you're right. It's fine that way.
Would it be, no, I guess this is right. Inability of teaching personnel. It's specific to teachers. Okay,
Yeah.
because it's student supervision.
Right.
All right. Anything we want to, are we fine with how we did this? Therefore,
Mhm.
So on to the last paragraph.
Okay, here we go. The superintendent will weigh these factors and take action to close the schools only after consultation with public works and public safety authorities and with school officials from neighboring towns. Students, parents, and guardians and staff will be informed early in each school year of the procedures that will be used to notify them in case of emergency closings. When schools are closed for emergency reasons, staff members will comply with school committee policy in reporting for work.
I would offer this. I would say that forcing Daryl to talk to other school officials might be a stretch here, and I think you could eliminate that last part of that sentence. You absolutely want him to communicate with the public safety people. You absolutely do. That's a given.
Yeah.
But the other one's optional, really, in my book. Like,
Or you could say after reasonable consultation with. But yeah, we can take that out. I think that's fine. He shouldn't have to call the whole world to decide whether to close the schools.
no.
And I think it has to have something to do with the weather part, guys, because if there's a, I don't know, power outage, he doesn't have to talk to public safety.
So do you want to add something? Do you want to add something to denote that?
I think it's fine the way it is now.
Maybe the word consultation could get changed.
How so?
Well, I mean, if there's a power outage, he's probably, I don't know, maybe they're going to contact Public Works, or if there's I don't know.
Depends on the town, Sherry. If it's a town that gets power from something that's not town-based,
that's right.
we call that group, like we'll call National Grid and say, hey, when's the power coming back up? It's not until this time. You know what? We're going to have to close that school today. You know, that's what we do. We're not calling like the town of Paxton, for instance. You know, we're saying, hey, there's no power.
Well, can we just say after consultation with appropriate authorities then, instead of being
better.
specific?
Yes, I like that.
I like that too.
I like that. Yes. Yeah,
That works.
Yes.
Bam.
Yes.
Making it concise.
Do we have a school committee policy for reporting for work?
Give me a minute.
Okay.
Is it a policy or is it just part of the teacher contract?
Oh, give me a minute.
Yeah, I'm wondering now that we have, like, I was kind of thinking about that along with the whole lines where we have this hybrid situation and moving forward with all that, Bob. I mean, my son is in kindergarten. He actually had an interesting version on what happened today at school. He said his teacher was sick, so he had a substitute, but his teacher was online.
Okay.
So I'm kind of sitting there going, that's interesting. Like, I don't know how that's with our hybrid model. Like, so I'm just, that's when I saw this whole, like, comply with school committee policy for reporting for work. Would it be in the conversation that right now we've closed schools because of snow, but the teachers are expected to move hybrid? So we haven't closed school. We're just moving to the hybrid model, for the day. And we have done that once. At least we did that once this year, right? Didn't we close because of snow and then we moved? So I don't know. I'm just kind of saying where that's kind of an interesting statement that kind of opens up that box where, and again, a teacher called in sick, had a substitute, but reported hybrid.
Well, they might not
I
have
don't know.
been. I'm just thinking of my school. Some teachers
Mhm.
have been able to, and this, I don't know if this is true here, have been able to teach remote from home under certain conditions for
Mhm.
like a short term, like maybe someone in their family had to quarantine, but they're not sick, but they had to not come to school, but they allowed them to
Yeah,
work.
and that's I don't have that
Something like
detail.
that.
Yeah, I don't have that detail because it's interesting because he knew again kindergarten.
Yes, right.
He knew she's not going to be in
Yeah.
tomorrow either.
Yeah.
So I don't have that detail as to why she was out, but I think that like again, that's where
Yeah.
this box is kind of open now, where we have these new hybrid opportunities for students, and then now we have these hybrid opportunities for teachers too. So yeah,
I think the box is closing though.
well that's what I'm wondering. Yeah,
I think that we should get rid of that line
This
completely.
about the school committee policy, this thing.
Yeah, I think that that's not what this is about. This is about
Right.
when we're going to close schools, not how the staff is going to respond to it. And
Yeah.
by putting that in our policy, then it affects contracts, and
Yes.
I don't see that it's important because it's written elsewhere, I think.
Right. Because if the school's closed for a snow day, teachers still have to, in non-pandemic years, teachers need to make the day. Like you take we have so many days you're contracted for. It seems
Right.
like this might almost apply to people who aren't under teacher contract, but I don't know what those details are. I'm with Sherry in thinking that we should probably not have that there.
Get rid of it. We have an attendance policy. We don't have a policy relating to closing of schools.
Okay.
as a school committee, we have an attendance policy for teachers, or you're saying in our contract
Yeah, under your policies, there's one
under our policies.
4,000 series maybe that's around attendance. That's the adults. 4,000 series is the adults.
All right. So there this policy is, I guess.
Great.
So you know those two legal references that are at the bottom. 71.4 deals with high schools specifically. It's the law that tells you that we have to have a high school, and it tells you how it has to operate, and it does include a statement in there that you would close it if the weather or if there's emergencies that don't allow safe participation. 71.4a is a state law that deals with the punishment for you guys if you fail to keep schools open. So that's what those in there are. So
Oh, my.
we're abiding by both of those.
Me personally, Bob, I mean, like,
School committees.
60
So-
days in
Okay.
jail?
like,
It's-
no, we're all gonna go to
no.
jail.
Well, you're on the hook for a lot of things, you guys.
Whoa,
You're the
elected official here.
yes, you
I think if
are.
we tell some of the other candidates that, they'll drop out.
Please read these
Volunteer.
policies.
Wow,
Oh.
they do. I didn't realize that. Look at that. There is a punishment
Oh yeah,
if you don't
there's
keep it
one
open
thing
the
in it.
number of days.
Fines. You will be fined if you don't blah blah blah. There's all sorts of crazy
Yeah.
ones.
Oh, man.
So this is when a few months ago, the commissioner was talking about punishing schools.
Yep.
Is this sort of what he was talking about? If you don't go back, then you would be deducted from your aid. And now I see this.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
So
Interesting.
outside of the pandemic year, has there ever been a case filed against a district for not complying with that law? I'm wondering if there's a law, there was a reason, right? Because it's not a problem unless there's a problem. So what was the problem?
None of the places I've worked, Laura, have I been aware of that.
Oh, now regarding students' makeup days, right? For a school closure day, the students are required to make it up. We're not referencing anything about that here. And high school days for seniors don't change because of a snow day. If it goes, it goes, right?
You have separate policies around attendance and days in session and all that. And I would say we don't want to bring that
Okay.
all here. It's defined other places.
Got it.
Okay, so we had made a motion before to delete those other policies, to bring it, I think our motion was to work on this policy, which we've done. Do we need to now take a vote to bring this forward to the school committee? Is that our next thing in our
If
process?
the maker of the motion would care to amend their statement, they could just say what they'd like to amend it to, which would be just what you're saying, Christina, and then we just have one motion here. So
So I think I was the maker of the motion. So I would like to amend that motion to move this motion to
move this
a
policy.
move this policy to the full committee for review and vote.
Is it for first reading or something like that?
And they know it is. It'll be, and we need to eliminate the other one.
The
The other-
inclement weather 3231.
Yep.
So that language in the motion stays.
And now do we vote on the amendment to this motion?
I think we need a
Correct?
second to the motion.
Oh, a second.
Second to the amendment.
All right, we got our
Second
second
amendment.
from Sherry.
I think then we vote on the amendment and then we vote on the vote, right?
Okay. Sure. Let's do that. So we'll vote on the amendment to the motion.
Before you do,
Yes.
I think what Laura's really asking is telling us that we're doing is we are amending the policy 3231 to have this new language in it, because the number will stay the same. You can choose to
Oh,
change the title
Oh.
as well. We didn't talk about
Got
the
it.
title, but that's what we're really doing is we're amending this policy to have new language in it.
Mhm.
that sounds great. Instead of deleting the policy, which was our original motion, which is why you said, do you want to amend your motion? So what we've done instead is originally we were thinking of deleting the little policy, the short one on closings. But what we've done is amend our policy on closings with this new language. So we're actually going to copy paste, and it's not a new policy.
Yep.
It is an amend. We're taking this language and putting it into that other one.
Yes, including
Wherever it
the
went.
title, because the title's more broad-based than just inclement weather. So this
Yes.
new policy would have the same number, this amended
Yeah.
policy, same number, new title of emergency closings, new language that you guys just agreed on.
Yes.
Yes, all that. That's
Yeah.
what I meant.
Yes.
Is there, and there is a second, right? Sherry, you were the second on that?
Yes.
Right.
That makes sense. So we're copying and pasting much of that one we just did into this and changing title, just so everyone's clear. Changing the title, so we don't have to do a deletion of this. Okay, now we'll vote on that. Okay, so Member Bennett,
Bennett, yes.
Member Haber,
Neighbor, yes.
Member Kirschenbaum,
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Long-Balil,
Longbeliel, yes.
Member Shapiro,
Shapiro, yes.
and the chair votes yes as well, so that's unanimous, and we'll go forward. So wow, we're gonna have two big things of business to bring to the next meeting. That's great. I know, finally, this is the way we do it on Education Subcommittee. Okay, thank you all for that. And now back to our agenda. We've got, we just did our review of policies, and we're onto this old business of postgraduate outcomes for students. And then we have supporting students who are failing in need of support. Do we want to, I feel like that postgraduate outcomes, that was something that Bob Imber, was that that topic that he's always asking about, the testing and those kinds of things. So I don't know if you have anything new to add to that, Bob, or if we're just going to go on to B.
I do not tonight. Yeah.
Okay. So for B, we'll move on to B then, supporting students who are failing in need of support. And I think you were going to talk about what's coming up for students maybe in summer.
Yep. We're in the midst of designing what our summer program is going to look like. And we're also in the midst of discussing what a potential extended school day might look like for next year. And that's something that would be more long-term. It would be a little longer day for some students in the fall, and maybe it'll continue into the spring. We don't know any of that just yet. The next grant that I have not written yet, because it hasn't been released yet, will be funding this to happen. So that's why we're trying to get our plans and figure out the costs associated with that. We're looking into transportation options, because certainly with a regional district over 5 towns, that has to play into it, as opposed to maybe if we're in a smaller community, it would be come pick your kid up kind of thing. But we have to really look at that. We're pretty spread out. What I do want to tell you is our concentration has been on reopening successfully the preschool through 8 schools. And today, and starting from today, is reopening the high school to the fuller capacities that we've seen across all those schools. Where I am now circling back with the schools to look at, we have an existing list that we've pulled together where we've identified students that are in need of what we're calling targeted support. These are students that might not be failing or doing absolutely no work. It might be this student used to get all A's and B's, and now they're getting C's and D's. That's of concern. So let's circle in on that student. It very well might be a student who's just fallen off the radar and is giving us next to nothing. Absolutely. But it's a wide gamut of students. Each school has a list. In this list, they've identified what the areas of concerns are. Some of these are social emotional concerns. Some are academic. Some are a combination of those two. We've also entered into that plan, well, what are we doing and how are we going to measure whether the student's making progress? So we'll circle back to see how those students are doing, and then to start to think about which students would we recommend for this summer work, as well as maybe going into next year as well. There's a possibility, Daryl's talked about this at the full school committee meeting, that the state is going to offer money for everybody to come in, or kids to get a sort of maybe sort of an enrichment, or to go up above and beyond a week before school, and the state will provide money for that. That's not what I'm necessarily planning right now. I'm trying to work with this nuts and bolts of, we're going to have money in this next grant that I will be writing, and how's that going to play out for the summer and for next year. The high school is maybe a week or two behind where the K-8s are, because they've gotten kids in school, the routines are down, they know how lunch works. So now I'm pushing those schools, the preschool through 8 schools, to start to look at this individual students. All right, guys, we got our routines down. The schools are working now with more kids in them. Let's circle back to the kids that maybe need some additional help. The high school will need a little bit of time to make sure that they can get that safely up and running, the new protocols, how do the kids move, all that stuff. And then I'll circle back to them as well on that. So that's just what I wanted to bring you up to speed as education subcommittee, that we will be working very closely on that, identifying those populations. But it doesn't mean we're not doing anything right now. We're not just doing nothing and waiting for those. We are certainly doing things right now and have been all year.
All right. Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Are you using, as you described, I think last meeting or another meeting recently, using STAR and Lexia and the common assessments that you described to identify some of those kids?
Absolutely. Not only to identify kids that we might say these are kids that we should have in for the summer or should participate next year, but we're also using those to monitor progress of different sort of remediation that we're doing right now to see if it's working or not.
Okay.
Bob's identified, he's just not good in English, and we're concerned about Bob, and he's behind. We're going to do this and this and give him this additional work or different work, and we'll monitor the progress to see if he's making any gains there, and we can move on to something else with him. So that's what we're using those for.
Oh, great. Okay, good. And I know that so far, the 11th graders are not required to take MCAS, but so far it seems like everybody else is.
There's some 11th graders that have to take MCAS. There absolutely
some
are.
do?
Yeah.
I see. Okay. Yeah, so.
Yeah. So any other questions? And then I'll jump on to MCAS next.
I do have a quick question. I realize that that late buses have been a huge issue in terms of funding, right? That's one of the reasons why we don't have them, because of the square mileage of our district. Do you see where the summer programming or extended day programming or some sort of intervention program, do you foresee transportation being a stumbling block or an absolute obstacle to employing those programs?
Laura, I'll answer it this way. When I write this grant and I divert funds from it into different buckets, one of the buckets I absolutely am committed to making sure we put some money towards is transportation to and from these programs. So it could be that as we get into the grant itself and start to say, well, if we have this much money and this much needs to go here and this much has to be there, it could be that we're having to have some priorities where we're saying we just can't fund that, whatever that is. I believe transportation is one of the things we have to include in this grant, and we'll see how far it gets us, because it is kind of expensive and it does eat up, a couple $100,000 out of a grant it takes a lot out of it. So, but I'm committed to it. I can't answer that today because I don't have how much we're getting. I don't have the application process. I don't know what hoops we have to jump through to put money in according to what the state tells us.
Thank you. Any other questions before we go to the other updates? Okay. All right. So do you want to, we'll let you go through these. You can go, did you want to go to MCAS first? I think we just talked about that. Go down to C. Okay.
That might slow us down a little bit here. The state hasn't changed their stance on MCAS. Still happening. They put off for 4 weeks the start of it in the 3 through 8 schools. High school didn't change anything, and there's been no indication from that level that the different communities that have done just like we did and sent forward a letter saying that we're not in support of MCAS this year. Looks like I'm not sure that they're looking closely at those either. So for the high school level, the kids that are remote have to come into the school to take the MCAS. So we've already worked, the high school team, myself, the principal, and our transportation company. We've already worked to set this up. So this will be starting May 3rd. I believe it's 3rd. Let me get the dates right here just really quickly here because it's kind of important. So May 3rd and 4th, those kids that are remote will be taking the bus or driving into school. They'll be taking the MCAS in school, and they'll also be doing that on May 6 and 7 as well. So those 4 days that week. So we've set up areas where it'll happen. They'll be in school for about half a day. They'll pretty much be done by 10:30. At that point, the buses will be there to take them back home. I think they're going to let them stay till 11. They'll be dismissing at 11 to go back home on those days. So we've got a plan in place. We figured out how it's going to work. We figured out who's going to monitor kids, where they're going to be. We'll be sort of using some of the spaces that we use for kids to eat in. That's why they'll come in, take it, leave. Now the kids can start lunch that are here. We'll get it to work that way. The high school's got a communication plan to how they're going to roll it out with parents. They might have already mentioned some of these things. I lately haven't been reading all the communications from the high school. So I think we're in pretty good shape as it is with the high school part of it. Questions or comments on the high school? In the 3 through 8s, the students that are remote have the option to take it remotely. And we're still figuring out exactly, because on our end, we have to assure that the machine that they're using can safely enter into the portal or the software app and take it on that machine. We've collected back a fair number of our Chromebooks so that our kids that are in session can use those Chromebooks in school to take the online assessment, the MCAS. So we're not quite sure how we do this and what authority do we have with someone's home computer, and it's interesting. So that's something we're still working on, and I don't have a real good answer for you right here today, but I bet in a week we will have a better answer. So,
thank you. Any questions on MCAS? All right, then we'll go.
One quick question. High school kids who don't show up to take their MCAS, it doesn't matter? I mean,
it absolutely matters. So let's say that I'm in the high school and I'm absent this year. then that means, and I'm a grade 10 student, Sherry, and I'm not there. That means as an 11th grader, I've got to take that makeup exam, and you have an opportunities in 11th and 12th grade that you have to take that. If I'm a good student and I miss it one year, then I'll probably take it and pass it the next year. If I'm one of those
Well-
students that achieve very well, if I'm a student that it's a challenge for me to do well in a certain subject like ELA or math or science, you want
I
to
mean,
have.
I'm not worried about the kids who just don't want to take it. I'm more worried about the kids who can't come in the building. What happens
This
to
is
those
all
kids?
on this. The state's given us very direct guidance on this, and we just have to. We're doing what they're
Okay.
telling us.
All right.
There's
Just
very little-
the saving grace is that they would be able to take it the
The
following
following year.
which isn't ideal, of course, because more time has gone by. But hopefully conditions will be better for them to be in if they don't feel comfortable.
Right.
There's very
Okay.
few local options, unfortunately, with this year.
Yeah. What's the schedule for the kids who are not remote, the kids in school?
They'll be taking it at the same time on those same 4 days. Yep.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear on that. Yeah, the buildings, we're shutting down areas. They're taking it at this time. We spent a fair amount of time planning it all out, and there's a lot of staff that also, because you have to have kids monitored. We can't do what we would normally do because we're using some of those rooms now for the remote kids. So we can't just say this grade is all going here and we're going to spread them out this way. But we're in a good spot. The high school's in a good spot for that. They are.
Okay. Well, there was a good reason that we passed a resolution not to have to do this year, but since we have to, you're going to make it work, right?
Yes, we are.
Oh, well.
Are there options for using local community centers for students who are there ADA accommodations that we can employ for students who cannot come into the larger school building in order to take it as a 10th grader? Are there, in other words, if a student's not taking it because they feel that they can't come into school, but there's really no ADA reason for them at this point because we're meeting all the CDC guidelines, then are there ADA accommodations that haven't been employed yet that might help these students get the test done this year?
Laura, we're doing everything we can to meet every student's needs. We're doing what we can. We cannot set up a variety of external locations. Probably staffing would be the biggest impediment, I would say, to that. We just don't have that army of people. They're all hands on deck when we do this in the high school on a normal year. This year, it's going to be even more challenging. So we've got people that normally we don't even have to use that are now watching this group of kids and over in this section of the building and doing this and that. So it's we're doing everything that we can, and we try to work with each family with what they need.
I wish that the state had stepped in with more support to accommodate, especially 10th graders, to be able to do the test in a secure environment, in a safe manner. And I feel like that this is another unfunded mandate that makes no logistical sense. And they are disregarding the science behind it, behind why we have these mitigation measures. So I appreciate, Bob, all the things that you and the administration are doing. And I feel that, that the state should be liable for this. That's my opinion there.
I think our feeling is close to that, Laura, as well. And thank you for the compliment there. It's mostly the high school folks who should be getting that compliment there. I think if this was something of intense or immense value, then you could understand why we would be sacrificing to make it work this year. There's little, if any, real return of merit that comes out of this, and just to do it because you have to do it is tough to swallow, and that's where we're at this year. I think you guys agree. You use
I agree.
measure, and
They do.
I mean, is it the state wants to be able to compare schools or performance between students in different schools? I mean, I sort of feel like we have a general idea of how that's going to shake out.
Linda, it's the blood money. It's we get this federal money, and if you're going to get this money, then attached to it is, yes, you have to measure how all students are doing. It's the feds that are not being very flexible with allowing us to skip that measure of accountability this year. So,
I see. Huh.
Yeah. And if we didn't take certain funding sources, such as Title I, for instance, some of these federal entitlement grants, we would not have to comply with this. But we don't have much say in the issue.
Yeah. Okay. I see. That's frustrating.
Yes,
I would
it
have
is.
expected better under this particular administration.
So that's MCAS. Thank.
And that's great. And it's at 8:00. Thank you so much for the update. And my battery's running out, so I'm not gonna be able to stay on much longer. The plug's downstairs. But I appreciate all of that information you gave us and the updates. That was very informative. We are on the agenda. It says the next meeting date, and with the town elections, I think on my notes, Bob, I put town electrons, but in the town elections that are coming up, I noticed that later. The town elections coming up, it's difficult to see when a next meeting date could be. Although Chair Dennis had written us something saying our committees could continue to meet, but I don't know, because people get sworn in and then I don't know if that works or not. So we'll wait. So we don't have a meeting set up yet, just because I don't know how the logistics work in the different towns with their swearing in and such.
Yeah. Do you need us? Can I ask a question? Do you need us to meet before May 10th? I mean, I forget when the other towns are. I know one town has them very late, but are there any other meetings, elections before May 10th? And is there anything pressing?
Well,
I mean, personally, I feel that we should be letting the administration right now get settled into school and MCAS and all of those things. And Bob, we're taking Bob's time. And I kind of felt like we should take a little bit of a reprieve as they deal with all of those things and the town meetings that they're going to be happening because they attend the town meetings. So I kind of felt like we should let things settle, the dust settle, and then when we get our new committee reorganize, that's the time to start meeting again. I don't know how others feel, but I just didn't want to put an undue burden unless there is something pressing, in which case Bob could call us together.
Sure.
I'm just curious, is there anyone on this committee who's up for re-election? Like, is there people that could be moving and changing? Oh, you are.
Lucky me. Lucky me, I get to run in the year of COVID.
Oh. You know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think we all should be sainted
all
to
the
be
time.
honest.
When is our election for Holden? Will you remind me when it is?
May 10th.
It's coming up. May 10th. That's why you asked May 10th. I should on my calendar so I don't forget to vote.
Yeah, make sure you vote.
May 10th. So maybe, Deirdre, to your point, we can see if Linda stays in place, then our committee would be intact. And then we could check with Bob to see if there's a time that works in his schedule with all your meetings.
Yeah, no,
I
I agree with what you were saying about how there's a lot going on and everything right now, but I also do, again, if Bob has something that he needs from us, I don't want him to feel like he can't call on us,
Right.
But it does sound like we have to wait and see what happens in Holden. So,
Well, let's make that our plan. We'll see. It all hinges on you, Linda. So, and best of luck.
Wow, that's a good pressure.
We'll see
All
what
I can
happens
say
there.
is vote early and often, folks.
Right. If we're vote early and often. Right.
Bring a friend.
Right, exactly. Put out your yard
We'll see how
signs.
that works. And then we'll check in with Bob about a potential date that's on your calendar where you don't have a meeting to go to. So what else was I going to say? I think that's it.
Motion to
Yeah.
adjourn?
Adjourn?
Yes.
Second?
All right, all those in, well, I guess we can't do all those in favor. So we'll go around. So motion to adjourn has been made and seconded. So Member Bennett,
Bennett, yes.
Member Haber,
Yes.
Member Kirschenbaum,
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Longbelial,
Longbelial, yes.
Member Shapiro,
Shapiro, yes.
and I vote yes as well. And thank you so much for your hard work tonight. That was great.
Yes,
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Lots
Good
of
luck.
good work.
Have a good
Good
night.
night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Welcome. Bye. And you're going to end the recording.
Oh, yes, thank you. Oh, my goodness.
Otherwise, we'll just keep recording.
No, we're going to stop that. There it goes.